Hello and welcome to the IMI Insights Podcast. In today's episode, we are exploring the expertise and innovation paradox in higher education and asking a really important question. How must B schools reinvent themselves in an AI driven world? And to answer this question, we are joined by Professor Devasheesh Mathur, who is a professor of strategy and general management at IMI. And he'll be sharing research backed insights into how B schools or institutes can adopt what he calls sensible AI, something that can balance technological advancement along with critical thinking, experiential learning, and mastery of skills. Hello, Professor Mathur. Hello, Professor Mathur. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Farana. Glad to be here.
So you begin your article in a very interesting way and you quote Dickens' very famous lines, which is best of times and worst of times, in depicting what is currently happening with Gen AI in education. So in the light of this, what do you think are like the threats and opportunities of Gen AI in higher education?
Well, quite a timeless and iconic line that Dickens wrote, and I feel they are all the more relevant in today's world. Uh, in our context, I feel it definitely, it's a very exciting moment. It's an inflection point like none before.
Yeah.
Everything around us is changing, including B school education. In terms of opportunity, I feel it's a great tool for educators primarily because now we can teach more complex concepts in a more easier way, something like, let's say, game theory. I can simulate that. I can make personalized learning possible for our learners. So AI is kind of accelerating the learning. We what we used to teach in, let's say, a span of 3 months, we can now crunch it in a span of, let's say, 1 month. So in an MBA program where the universal complaint used to be that, it's a 2-year program and we had to devote majority time in classroom learning, AI has given us an opportunity to take that learning outside and beyond the classroom, but maybe in the dorm rooms of students only, right? So AI is threatening the earlier paradigm. Universities and B schools worldwide, they're designed for peer-to-peer learning, which happens in classroom and on university campuses, right? We are living in an era where students already have their own hyper-personalized AI assistants and which curate their learning plans. We have ed tech platforms which are already using AI for curating what you want to learn and assessing on how well you have learned.
So very personalized tracks.
Absolutely. So not even personalized. I think it's hyper personal. The tools know the learner better, right? So the tension right now, what I feel and I observe in our classrooms is we are still forcing them to sit in a classroom. We are still forcing peer to peer learning on them. We are giving them group projects, assignments which they are supposed to discuss in a group and then present it in a manner which helps them in their future job.
Right.
They are resisting that because their instinct is now to, the moment they get an assignment, go to AI, give prompt, and just download it and vomit it out, right? We can clearly see that there is no learning in doing that. So that's the biggest threat which we are facing, and we need to reinvent so that this does not become a threat, rather we use it as an opportunity.
Right. So in the past year, we've seen, and even not just the past year, but ever since we've seen Gen AI come up, there's been like unprecedented adoption of it, especially from young learners, students. So is there something that, B schools or institutes in general might have misunderstood about this AI wave?
Well, I don't think we misunderstood it because frankly there was not enough, and even now there is not enough evidence, or we don't have enough to make sense of what it is,
Right.
right? We are still waiting for the use cases. Industries and business domains at large, they're still trying to grapple with how well can we use this. The only evidence right now is there's an immense productivity jump which comes with a lot of trade-offs. So for an outsourcing firm that outsources, the BPOs, KPOs of the world in Bangalore, their trade-off is we can use AI right now, today also, but we'll have to possibly fire and lay off half of our workforce,
True.
right? So that's the trade-off that they'll have to live with. Plus, AI is not that well developed. It will take its own time,
Yeah.
right? We are craving for an AI which is humanized, right? AI right now is absolutely far away from it.
Yeah.
So I feel we acted out of our own fear because we felt that this is the internet and the Google moment all over again with 10x of repercussions. That when internet came, the earlier paradigm was people who are learners and scholars, to seek knowledge and information, they would go to a library. You and I probably have done that,
Yes.
right? We would spend hours seeking information. A lot of us probably felt that it's a waste of time. That has been eliminated now. You have information at the click of a button.
Yeah.
Right? The trade-off, the biggest trade-off that I have experienced and I see all around me is that it significantly diminishes and lowers retention rate of information. Now I don't retain information.
Because you don't need to in a way.
Absolutely right. Which impacts the applicability of it in later life. I keep telling this to my students that you may use Gen AI, you may Google information and forget it in the next 10 minutes. But imagine this, you are pitching it to a client.
Yeah.
Mr. Adani is your client. You are pitching for the next project. Your CEO is in the boardroom. You are the one who's making a presentation. You forget something. You don't remember how to apply Porter's 5 forces. That is a moment where you can't pull out your phone and give a prompt.
Yeah.
It's you who has to implement something. It's you who has to think on your feet. That is the biggest trade-off which we are seeing. And hence, we need to make sense of how do we balance this act. So our misunderstanding, so as to speak, was uh, AI is not for university campuses. It does not help students at all. And hence a lot of campuses in the beginning blocked, right? Slowly, I see LinkedIn posts where institutions are allowing, they're buying licenses.
Yes.
Again, with the same fear, we don't know to what extent students will outsource. So I feel we need to make sense of that.
Yeah. But I think just sort of using it a little bit and trying to understand it would probably do away with that fear that institutes might have.
Yeah, because it's not going away.
Yeah. It's here to stay.
It's here to stay. We are just like Google. We are using it in our own lives.
Yeah.
Educators are using it. I don't remember paths and how to go from point A to point B anymore.
Yeah.
I rely on Google and it's extremely accurate.
Yeah.
So if it's a productive tool, if I can offload my cognitive load onto a tool, why not?
Absolutely.
The only space we need to be careful is if you need that cognitive load for someone to learn in later life, then we can't allow it to be outsourced.
Right. So in this light and in the article, you talk about expertise paradox. So can you explain it to us? And is it something that educators should be worried about?
Absolutely. It's the most present and clear danger for educators right now. Expertise paradox, in simple words, is the more someone uses generative AI for simpler tasks, what we call as lower order cognitive tasks, something like, let's say, writing an email.
Yeah, which is very common.
Which is very common.
Yeah.
By the time you go to a university, by the time you are 18, 19, 20, I'm 100% sure they know this. This is something which should have a muscle memory. You don't need to, use a tool to draft an email, right? So the more you use generative AI for a task like that, the paradox is your ability to perform higher order tasks significantly drop. So if you have to make a marketing plan for your brand, 100 crores is riding on that.
Yeah.
That's not a situation where you can outsource it to Gen AI. And absolutely not to begin with.
Yes.
Your manager tells you that, next week we are pitching to a client, or we have a meet with the client. We are supposed to create a marketing plan for their new product. You can't in the next 5 minutes go to Gen AI and say, okay, this is the situation, give me some plans.
But I think people do that.
I feel a lot of people do that. I want to ignore that fact. I can't live in a world where this is being done. But that's the expertise paradox, which essentially says that now AI will become the expert, not you. Which, if you are smart enough to understand and project and forecast, it simply means that then AI will be the master in the future, not us. Right? So then I constantly threaten my students nowadays in classes. You can use AI after 10 minutes. I'll tell you when.
Yeah.
But apply your brains right
Brains
now.
first,
If you're
yes.
not doing that, I'll suggest to the institute you are not to be recruited. AI will be recruited. Because if you are doing that task, you are here to learn, you have paid a fees. Why are you using AI? Don't make it a clutch on which you walk. You have to run. Make it a shoes which gives you a softening cushion. That's the analogy which you have to think of. It's not something which without which you can't function.
True.
So
Right.
that's the biggest threat right now.
And along with this, you also mentioned the innovation
Yeah.
paradox, which I think along similar lines is to do with creativity. So tell us a little bit about that.
See, innovation paradox is something which we have observed. Even my mom is experiencing that. She's on the receiving end of it, which simply means that the first wave of generative AI, because the word includes generative, a lot of people, majority mass market uses it to generate outputs like images, videos, to an extent also fake scam calls, right? You wouldn't know, she wouldn't know if I'm calling or someone has, just listened to my two words and then made a whole audio file out of it.
True.
So, innovation paradox is simply says that the more you use generative AI for creative tasks, again, your ability to be creative will constantly go down, which we are seeing, right?
Yeah.
So, in I wouldn't, I would think it's a very pathetic world where generative AI is writing poems. The next big movies, the Bahubalis and the K3Gs are written by AI. Because that's the extrapolated world we are going to live in. People are going to use them, rely on these tools more and more to a level that they'll stop
Being creative on
being
their
creative
own.
at all,
Yeah.
right? So in a B school environment where we do a lot of business functions, barring a very few functions, I won't even count, like finance also requires a lot of creativity, right? How can you create new creative financial products,
Yeah.
right? Humans need creativity. In fact, a lot of anthropologists think that creativity and imagination is the only thing that differs us from animals.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we have the rats and humans have same 95% identical gene code, right? What makes us different? We can imagine things, right? We can make things,
Yeah.
right? We have evolved being creative people. Suddenly, now we have Gen AI. We have suddenly stopped very starkly being creative, right? We are not valuing creative thinking. We are not thinking on our own how to make products, better products. Everything is now possibly being shifted and diverted towards AI in the garb of getting trained. So the cost will be that we will not be able to distinguish whether this ad campaign was made by AI or humans. So the Piyush Pandays of the future possibly will be AI driven.
And also, we won't have any of them because they would outsource everything to Gen AI.
Yeah.
So they're not learning to sort of enhance that creativity or thinking skills.
Absolutely. But I think the biggest cost that human race will pay will be the complete lack of empathy. Because till date, we don't have the answer to how do you teach machines to be empathetic,
Right.
right? So if Piyush Pandey was making a dairy milk ad, he observed something, he got the pulse of Indian consumers that we are passionate about cricket, and he made that beautiful ad.
Yeah.
AI will simply use data and make maybe a very good ad. Why not? But if I get to know of it, or will it be so apparent that it lacks empathy because it purely works on data?
Yes.
So I think that will be the biggest cost which we'll have to experience.
So another very interesting thing that you've pointed out is the equity paradox. Because when you think of Gen AI, you think everyone has access to it, and it kind of democratizes learning. But apparently that's not the fact. So how is it that Gen AI is actually sort of widening the gap between learners?
I think it will do it in a very mean way. We'll have to regulate that. But what equity paradox essentially says is something which we have already observed in terms of internet access, right? So whenever a new tool, a new technology comes in, we already know that there are early adopters of it, right? So let's say something like mobile phones. So the first people who bought mobile phones in India and possibly globally also were the professionals who have the need for being available all the time. The doctors, the lawyers, the business people who can't lose sales calls and client calls. Uh, the expertise paradox essentially says that it's also a matter of affordability. A lot of people can afford it, but they possibly don't need it, right? Uh, which means that a wealthy person, may not like a lot of wealthy housewives may not have absolutely any need of mobile phones to answer calls, which is a primary function of a mobile phone. But they have it, and they have to figure out their own use case. How do I use it, right? But there is no productivity gain for them. There is no, absolute need for it, unlike a business person or someone like that. But there might be a rickshaw wala, thela wala who needs it the most. It can absolutely bring in a significant jump to their productivity, to their livelihood and everything. So all the 85% of Indian unorganized sector absolutely needs a mobile phone, but they're the last ones to get it. So in the same way, Gen AI can be used by people who already know the previous paradigm. So someone who already knows how to log in onto an email account, how to Google something, will be the first ones to use it. And hence, they will have a head start more than the people who possibly need it. I would argue something like people who are in government schools right now, where there is a lack of quality teachers, government colleges, where there is a big gap in skills. AI can immediately fill that gap. Right? You can learn the same thing in a government college in a tier 3, tier 4 town, which an IIT student is learning right now. Right? So we can make it simultaneous. We can generate videos which AI can develop. You can teach concepts. It can become like an edtech platform. But because there's no business case, no one is doing that. Right? So this paradox says that people who need it the most will receive it in the end. And hence, by the time they receive it, it would have gone through so many adolescents. It's so much better for the people at the top of the pyramid that there's a lag. The version that we are using right now, it will reach to the bottom of pyramid maybe a year from now. By the time we have moved on, so we have become better at it, those people are still learning it. So the gap will always remain and widen.
So the idea that we think that something like this, which is so easily accessible, could actually reduce the gap, in fact, ends up widening it.
Unless someone jumps in.
Yeah.
Unless, I don't want to name names, but since there's no repercussion for me, unless Bill Gates comes in, Mark Zuckerberg comes in, and they have tried to their credit, and they create a free of cost program for the bottom of the pyramid in, let's say, Asian countries. Till that happens, there is no business case. Why would anyone invest into holding hands for people who need it the most? Right. So maybe the public sector has to do it. Maybe the government will have to do it. But again, they will also jump in when they're more confident on the product.
Sure.
This is still being developed.
Yeah.
Right. So the risks are much higher. The higher risk, higher return still exists. So governments absolutely can't do that. It will be a burden for taxpayers.
So another thing that you had mentioned earlier as well is how much educators have relied on the Bloom's taxonomy, and how that sort of is used to teach students. But now, given that Gen AI can also in a way apply their do it for the students, they can apply and do other things. So how does that become a threat now? Like,
yeah, it's the same thread that I spoke about earlier, that students are not participating in their own learning process. Someone else is, right? And a very few students and learners have the genuine ability to do a good prompt engineering, right? Which is again their own personal journey. I don't think neither we care about it nor the future their employer will care about it. Both of us will look at it and not like it.
sure.
Right? We'll frown upon it, that this is not the skill for which we hired you. Right? Your skill is something else. You can use it as an assistive tool. That's okay. So I feel, we need to look at, the Bloom's taxonomy when it was invented, and it has been there for a long time. It has worked till now because we have gone through the industrial revolutions 1.0 till 4.0, where there were a lot of jumps in the, in technologies, but it never threatened the way we taught things. We have always evolved along with the industry. Okay, you need now data managers, we'll give you data managers, right? Because again, at the end of the day, data managers have to work with data, but the data is generated by real humans and they have to manage real humans, right? The paradox right now is, there's a very interesting book by Professor Fanish Puranam. He's at INSEAD Paris. His latest book, Rehumanize, the whole book is about how do we use generative AI and AI at large within industries, including these schools, and make it, you know, specific to human context. So you have to think of the context first, set your own boundaries, and then make it, allow it to give us the productivity jump. So with this Industrial Revolution 5.0, which is coming now with AI, uh, I feel, that gap will be so widened and so stark that we'll have to relook at how do we now reinvent our curriculum and courses where the primary skill required in the future will be how do you work in this matrix of human AI interaction. So every single course, be it HR, OB, finance, operations, strategy, will have to integrate AI and impart knowledge and skills that you keep the human in the context at the center stage while using AI to generate output, right? So that you don't get lost in the whole matrix of AI key. This the AI can also do, right? Because then the students will get disillusioned. What is my value? What is that I'm bringing to the table?
Yeah, and I think that's already happening because people are questioning where are we in this
Yeah,
scenario, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So this topic is obviously something that you're very passionate about, and you're also doing a research
Yeah.
on how this adoption of Gen AI in students is bringing about pedagogical changes in B schools.
Right.
So what have your observations been so far?
I have
Briefly, you
had.
can tell us
Sure.
briefly.
So that project is still going on, by the way. What I was driven by my curiosity was that how are people like me, the educators, are adopting and adapting to this new monster of Gen AI. And I'm someone who does not really create good boundaries because I feel if you want to learn, take the onus of learning and you're free to use whatever tool. I'll evaluate you accordingly. And as long as you are learning, I'm okay, So I'm trusting you enough. And I know the baseline, you may be outsourcing, that's okay. But can you demonstrate that are you learning enough? That's good enough for me. But I realize that maybe not everyone is like me, right? I wish to call myself a liberal mindset of an educator. I'm not saying that it's good or bad. It may have a lot of negative sides to it. But I feel, in a B school environment where we're teaching adults, I need not be a nanny to them.
Yeah.
Right. So I was driven by a curiosity that how are people looking at this? Because it's still emerging. So what are the different attitudes? What are the different pedagogical shifts that people have tried? So I wanted to kind of look at not the good practices, but the emerging practices which are very innovative
Right.
and possibly integrating AI along the way. So right now I'm in a phase where I have interviewed a lot of B school professors, largely in India, and I have tried to understand, their thought process uh, at their level as well as the institutional level. While doing that, I realized that I can now conceptualize something as a learner, educator, learning continuum. So there are two stakeholders, learner and educator,
Yeah.
but the both of them want an output in learning. Have you learned?
Okay.
Like what I was saying, that I'm only interested in have you.
What have you learned?
Right.
Yes.
The trouble is Gen AI is breaking that continuum. I'm fighting for my own space now because they have replaced me without asking me. They are just simply giving prompts, right? Now, either I can be threatened by it. Some institutes have blocked it, like I said.
Yeah.
Some, in universities in India, I spoke to these people and they said, in our B school, we have stopped giving take home assignments.
Okay.
We are simply doing all live assignments.
In class.
And we have reverted to pen and paper based exams. So they were, institutions like New Ions where they had ridden the wave and they were doing online exams. There are tools now which can proctor online and you can type any answer and a lot of things like that. But they're unable to curb that. People now are using AI. So how do we stop that? So they have actually regressed and they have gone back to pen and paper. right? Which is a sad turn of events.
Yeah.
So there is a big
So
distrust.
it's like completely avoiding something that exists.
Exactly. While there are other, B schools and universities where they are doing interesting things. Uh, a lot of professors I interacted, majority of them, they're okay and they themselves are learning. They have gone through courses themselves that we also want to see how do we use this. I, for one, I've been generating simulations using Copilot and I give them in class. Right? It's not my intellectual property, so I'm not publishing it. But at least my classroom is much more engaged. I'm doing live quizzes that each one of you, can you ask Copilot to give you a 10-question quiz on the same concept which we learned right now? And it will give you a score, right? So that it also gets on your train on your data,
Yeah.
and you can use it in the future, right? So there are interesting pedagogies which I'm collecting, and I'll be publishing it later on, which a lot of people are doing interesting experiments. So it will become an anthology of experiments, which may eventually become like a pedagogical tool.
That's very interesting. So, in this context, you also mentioned the use of responsible and sensible AI. So, like, elaborate more on that because that seems like a very interesting concept.
Yeah. So carrying on from what I spoke about just now, uh, what a lot of people like me have realized is that AI is good till we are the masters.
Mm-hmm.
And a major shift that is happening in our job description is now we should be creating responsible and sensible boundaries for students to adopt AI in classroom and beyond classroom, right? So, sensible and responsible AI simply means that these schools need to create structures and architectures where they train professors and faculty members in a manner of speaking that they allow AI to be used within their classrooms. So for example, like we have been using world over, we use case study method, right? Of late, the biggest complaint has been that no one reads a case study. They simply upload it on their preferred Gen AI tool, and it generates the analysis. AI also helps you, rather AI completely makes your PPT. A lot of students actually come to the classroom while presenting, they're reading through the slide.
So, they have no idea
They
what
have
the
no idea.
presentation is.
And a lot of them are smart. I may not be able to catch them, but that's not my job. They will pay the price eventually in their job. Their CEO, their boss will pull them up and say, "Oh, this is what you've learned in your MBA." So rather than being indifferent or rather than being, disgusted by it, sensible AI simply says that why not create boundaries? So I started doing this. While I'm discussing a case, let's all shut down our systems. This is the case, right? Uh, be in groups, make live groups right now, whoever you're comfortable with, and I'll give them roles to play. You are the stakeholder, you are the product manager, you are the operations officer, you are the CEO, I'm the client. We'll do a role play. Let's spend 15-20 minutes in making sense of, and let's see what is your instinctive response. Have we trained you enough to take a path, a logical path? Okay, this is how I will address this problem statement. Once you have something, then you can open AI and then validate, am I on the right path? Right? Or ask them, give me an alternative pathway.
Yeah.
So that your learning gets enhanced. Okay, this was one pathway which I could think of. I did not think of this way, approaching the problem this way. Maybe I could have gone this way, right? But at least they're doing that in front of me. I know what is the quality of the prompt. I can do the course correction and I can ensure that they learn in each and every session whenever I do this, right? So that's sensible AI, that AI is being used under supervision so that AI generates sensible output. It does not hallucinate. The educator can course correct in front of themselves. Otherwise, if it's being done beyond their eyes, uh, the boat has already sailed when you can't do much about it.
Yeah. So, what you currently described in a way is passive dependency on AI. So, what are the methods that B schools or institutes in general can adopt to combat this dependency?
So, what I've learned in my research project is also that a lot of faculty members are free thinkers, so we can do experiments. But we also need an effort at an institutional level to collect these successful experiments and turn them into proper pedagogical tools which work in real classes. Something like there is a pedagogical tool known as flipped classroom, where I, as an educator, will simply give an assignment that in the next session, we will cover, let's say, a SWOT analysis, right? You are free to choose your own topic, your own industry, your own brand, but you'll have to come and teach your peers. I will be sitting as a learner in the class. You are now the educator. So what it does is they will have to now, complete and traverse the whole pyramid of Bloom's taxonomy. They'll have to memorize, they'll have to understand, they'll have to, apply it to the topmost level, so that they're also not only they deliver the content, they're also prepared for good, interesting, intelligent Q&A in the classroom. So they have to act like educators, which will give them maximum confidence. Okay, now I can apply it in real life as well. Another tool is live projects, where we invite recruiters, alums, industry at large, that if you have a real life problem statement, come and give it to our students. They have gone through their foundational courses, then they understand marketing 101, they understand supply chain 101. They can give you a very good solution, which possibly, you are too close to the fire, to the woods to see the fire. So someone who is not emotionally invested, they can come up with a very good, solution for that. In doing that, they'll learn how it's done in the industry actually, right? So both these solutions can only work if the institution adopts it at a meta level. They create structures, they invite stakeholders to do that. So I feel the future lies where we now look at the whole continuum. Like I said, the learner, educator, learning out continuum. We'll have to make recruiters and the industry also as a part of educator. So one of the better ways to do it is invite industry to co-create curriculum. That what do you want these students to do 2 years from now? Can you deliver it right now in their classroom? So rather than teaching through theory, or even a pseudo theory like a case study, which is still text based, which is still, it could be fictional also, you give it a real problem, right? We'll help them and guide them through the process. That's our job now. And when they're ready, you come in and see what is their solution good enough or not. So I feel the B schools, at least, they need to tap into their recruiter and alum network more than ever, and invite them and say that now we need to make learning more realistic, right? Experiential part is up to us. We keep forgetting that experiential may still be theoretical. I may give them a very theoretical problem. They can just simply go to the market, do a survey. They'll end up learning how to do a survey, but they'll not end up learning how to solve the real problem, which has real consequences, right? So to make it realistic experiential learning, we need to invite real people, right? And step back from saying that, okay, my job is only restricted to do this. I'm not now going to, do hand holding. My job is not to take assessments and take exams, right? My job is to make sure they learn.
So the capability of a hand, the ability to be able to think
Yes,
through things which are real,
which are real.
actually happening.
Yeah. And I've always believed that every learner is different. The current methods, unfortunately, make every learner in the same mold, right? We want more uniformity, and that's where creativity dies, right? Because practically speaking, I can't take in 60 separate solutions and evaluate them. There can't be any benchmark, there can't be any rubric. Practically, I might not have enough time to do that, to do justice to that. AI can assist in doing that. That's where the personalized learning can come in, right? So it's a very good tool if used right.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because my next question is going to be about what you had mentioned in your article, and you said that Gen AI could actually be a live teaching assistant.
Yeah.
So how does that come about in a classroom?
In the biggest possible manner, for people like me who want to ensure the best possible learning for the learner, which I'm sure everyone does in their own way. Gen AI can allow me to do a lot of experiments, right? So teaching assistants, typically their job is to do the clerical work,
Yeah.
right? But Gen AI now, and this is happening right now also, Gen AI tools can actually help me understand, to begin with, if I'm doing a session, I will deploy an AI which will which tracks everyone's movements, typically like eye movements, iris movements. And by the end of the session, I can figure out who was paying more attention than others, or where during my presentation the mass attention dipped. So I can go and rejig my presentation, rethink of how to do it better, right? So starting with, as a teaching assistant, Gen AI can help me in tracking real time performance. That if I'm doing a quiz, who's spending more time on complex questions, who's stumbling at the very foundational questions, how do I redo them for this group, how do I take the other group ahead, or so that they don't lose time while others are still catching up, right? So again, I'll go back to live teaching assistant in the pursuit of making it personalized learning,
Yes.
so that everyone gets the maximum of their buck. I have paid this fees, so why should I pay the price for freeloaders? Why should I pay the price of slow learners, so as to say, right? So if I already know accounting, I've done CFA, I've done BCom, MCom, whatever, I don't need to sit idle in a financial accounting, financial management class. I already know it, right? A live teaching assistant, if I deploy it right, can help me take the same student in the same session ahead and give a personalized exercise that why don't you solve this,
Right.
right? While I'm discussing something else with others. So a live teaching assistant will be, I don't have a visualization for it right now, but maybe something who keeps real time tracking of performance. Performance also means, where do I need an intervention? So 10% of the class has already dipped. They are unable to move forward. So I'll go to those 10% and I'll redo in a different way.
So make it more personalized
Yeah.
without really you having to, you know, do everything for all students, but use AI as a helping tool.
And for once and all, I stop believing in one size fits all,
Right.
right? I can do separate micro cases to each and every student using Gen AI, and their Gen AI will take them through the process. I can design it, and it's possible even today. People are designing it, so that will make it personalized. My job will, again, as I said earlier, will be to look at how do I make it. How do I also, you know, put in the ingredients of peer-to-peer learning? Can I make two AI assistants talk to each other and say, okay, my guy is also asking me these questions. Is your guy asking these questions? So the multiplier effect can also be integrated into that, and a lot many things can be done. But the starting point will be this, that now I'm not looking at a classroom as one class. It can be 50, 60. Yeah, it's individual learners, and that's the biggest jump which we should have, because that's what they're here for. I would be happy to sit in a classroom like that.
Absolutely. I think we all would.
Yeah.
Where, you feel like the teacher's actually paying attention to how you're learning and sort of creating a curriculum that sort of caters to you personally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in light of that, of course, we've seen that AI has gone into everything now. There's no escaping it. It's there. So you also talk about how new departments will emerge
Yeah.
with tech business interfaces. So then, of course, B schools or any institute, especially B schools, will have to reinvent their curriculum.
Yeah.
So how fast should they do it, and what how important this is to stay relevant?
They should do it right
Now.
now. If they are not doing it today, they are getting left behind for sure. Because this surely is an existential crisis, right? But it's not threatening as such, because the mass market is still out there, right? So we do have a distillation in terms of ranking. So the top ranking institutions are doing it right now. Others will follow. That's always how it happens. But this is an opportunity to jump ahead of the curve. So even if you are a 500 ranked institute today, through using AI, you can build a world class curriculum even today.
Yeah.
There's no one stopping, right? You'll have to prove it to the consumers, then they'll start coming to you. But what I'm trying to say here is the need to make it relevant for all the stakeholders, primarily to the learners and to the recruiters, is so strongly felt today than ever before, because the jobs of the future are changing. You know,
Right.
so we already know that AI will take over. AI is not only an assistant, it can do everything in a lot of jobs today which humans were doing today, right? We have seen this before also. When internet banking came in, we used to have human tellers. Then ATMs came, they became the automated telling machines, right? So we don't go to a human to do the passbook and checking the balance. It automatically is done on our behalf, right? We don't need to go to a bank to deposit check. We can simply do it much faster with much more security, no human error, right? AI is doing the same thing, right? So we need to now think of how do we make sure that people who are going to take our products, they don't have to retrain them, that we are still doing the same marketing, found 101 marketing 201, and then they end up learning entirely in a different fashion when they do their job, right? So why not integrate it right now, which we can easily do that, right? So the my larger my 2 cents is that we need to now reassess the what do we visualize are the jobs of the future. If you're going to become a product manager, how you can use and integrate AI, which they will have to anyways, because their employer will be, because they'll need competitive advantage and be faster than their competition. So if you already see that, then we need to redesign our curriculum where we may be teaching the same concepts, but the pedagogy shifts. We use AI and we allow our students either through flipped classrooms, live projects, or we create our own live projects and say that we want you to design the marketing campaign for this product, let's say a digital banking product. How do you do that, right? Your assessment becomes that only, right? So that by the time you finish that course, you have done what you will be doing 1 year from now, and you don't need to retrain them, so they are ready to be absorbed in the workforce, which they currently are not. So that's what.
So that reduces the skill gap that we really have. There's so much talk about it that there's clearly a skill gap between what recruiters want and what institutes might be offering.
Yeah, I would replace the word skill right now with competency. Skill is still to be emerged. We don't know what that skill may be. Right now, we are calling that skill as prompt engineering, right? But at least the competence is how do you interact with AI? And whatever I have spoken till now, the student also has to demonstrate that they're using sensibly and responsibly, right? They have not outsourced everything. So it's not completely AI generated. You have generated the first draft. Now you have just improved it using AI. That's what your future manager will also want you to do, right? So the idea is that in the face of completely shifting, so in strategic management, we have this very beautiful concept known as S curve. And S curve is ingrained in humans because evolution also follows S curve. When a change comes into a species, there's a accelerated change and then it stabilizes.
Okay.
So when internet came, within 2-3 years, anyone who had to adopted it, then settled with it, that now internet is the next new thing.
Yeah.
So people started building, websites. There was a dot-com boom and everything happened. And the world now remembers it happily that happened. Some people paid the price for it, but the larger mass market was better for it. We need to make sure that AI also follows the same S curve. The problem is people who are leaders in one S curve, which has already plateaued. There are three possibilities when the next S curve starts. There are three possibilities for an incumbent and the market leader. If you invest at the right time in, let's say, in Gen AI, you may have continued growth. So if top B schools world over in India, if they integrate AI at the right time, they will have 1/3 possibility probability that they will have continued growth because they have done it at the right time with the heart in the right place, that we want to ensure learners learn. The other two possibilities are if you don't, or if you wait till,
Delayed.
yeah, if there's a delayed response, you may have a stagnated growth. So you will stagnate, which simply means that you will die later. And if you absolutely hate it right now, you don't, you,
Adopted at all.
you are averse to adoption, the only outcome will be you will become obsolete. So in strategy, we say continued growth versus stagnated growth versus obsolescence. So if you don't use AI, you will be Kodak, you will be BlackBerry. So you have to know it. You choose your own path. So that's why I keep saying that S curve is already changing. It's already has started. How soon do you jump onto the next S curve is up to you and your other stakeholders.
Yeah. So, in the light of all of this, of course, education is changing. Higher education has to keep up with Gen AI. So, do you believe that the traditional format of MBA is kind of obsolete now and it needs to keep up? Or do you think MBA as a whole has kind of become obsolete?
I wouldn't want that for sure for my own bread and butter. But yeah, like I said, those who are unwilling to change will surely become obsolete. They may still exist in the market. They will not have the brightest of minds going to them. So there will be a big deficit in quality of students. They can still cater to the bottom of the pyramid. But also, they should treat this as an opportunity to jump ahead of the curve, right? They can invest into tech-based learning, integrate AI, and if they're able to do that, they can see a significant jump in their rankings, right, wherever they are right now. But what I'm trying to say is anyone and everyone should be reinventing right now, because MBA will always be relevant. If not for information and knowledge, you can't have a perspective on the click of a button. The value of sitting in a classroom, learning in a cohort, from your peers, will always remain that you will see different perspectives and approaches to solve a problem, right? That can only happen when you are in a degree program, right? You We always ask this, why are you we ask this to a fresher, why are you applying to an MBA, why not to work, right? Because we strongly believe that people who have worked before, that they will learn better. The reason is they would have seen some challenges, they would have seen their worldview being challenged, they would have seen the opportunity. Oh, this is something which I don't know, right? Not only knowledge, this is something, how do I resolve conflicts, how do I say no to my manager, right? And not everyone will find a mentor, right? So you apply to a B school, to a degree program, typically to also learn perspectives, and that's our job. The classrooms should be places where it should be a safe space where you can disagree with the prof, with your peers respectfully, and say, but I will not approach this problem this way. What if I approach it this way? Right? There's a conflict. What if I approach the problem, not the person? Things like that, right? So I feel MBA will always be relevant in a very different format. All the things which we have discussed, using AI, being more efficient, generating better knowledge, make it more hyper personal. But my value in a classroom will always be, how do I bring different perspectives into the classroom, value each of them equally, and ask others that now reflect on the others' perspective, that they would not think of this as this problem, they would approach it as a separate problem, right? There have been classrooms where I've asked, most interesting classrooms always have been in an ethics class, where I asked them that, can you rate profit, brand, innovation, employee well-being, sustainability in a rank, right? A lot of people want to rank profit at number one, right? And I always welcome the challenging perspective, why profit should not be. It's absolutely okay. You should say profit has to be number one. Can you defend it? The moment other people start challenging it, they see, okay, we can see it's not everything. You have to balance people, profit, planet, the triple bottom line concept. So every classroom should give them, a new perspective. Then I know I'm successful. Then they know there's value of MBA, right? Otherwise, in today's day and age, knowledge and information is out there. You can go and take it. You will not know how to apply it. We will give you platforms and opportunities to apply, but also we'll package it in a way where you will see the multiplier effect in learning in a group, and you will be able to see different perspectives which you otherwise would not. So that's the value of MBA, which is going to stay. We'll have to adapt.
So adaptation and of course reinvention is what we're looking at.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Professor Mathur. This has been very interesting and very enlightening as well.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.